Horror's Greatest is an anthology series, a horror anthology series on Shudder. It's series 2, where we embark on a thrilling journey through the genre's best with insights from the masterminds behind your favourite scares. Dan is here. We are boys on film. I'm Phil. Good to see you, Dan. So, I don't know about you, but I love a Clips series. If it's a good clip series,
they are the easiest TV to watch, and they're like something you can just throw on. I think when you sent me the kind of the screener for this, or shall we review this, there was an element of just thinking, I've seen so many of these things over the years. There's the whole like scariest moments thing, and I'm like, well, I've seen every one of them because they always pick the obvious ones. And I think when we last spoke, I think you get to the point where I've heard all the trivia as well, so like I'm very well aware that they used the William Shatner mask in Halloween.
That always crops up, doesn't it, that one?
Yeah, people are like, did you know it's a William Shatner mask? Like, yes, I've known that since I was like 12. So part of me went into this thinking like, is this really going to be able to do anything new? And it did, which I'm kind of pleased to say. Like, I was very surprised. I kind of put it on thinking, well, this would be like an easy watch. But I really liked it, actually. I've only seen 3 of the 5 episodes. That are available at the moment. So yeah, what would you, how about you, what do you think?
I really enjoyed it. I mean, like I say, I really enjoy Clips TV series. Even if they're not necessarily well done. It's like Jeremy and myself, we always laugh over Christmas about the fact that I always want to watch the top 50 countdowns, you know, the funniest moments of TV, like whenever, just because I just like that kind of the sense of just a little snippet of something and then moving on to the next it's just entertaining. And also, you know, like you say, it can be shoved on like when you've got an hour free. You don't necessarily have to really think about it too much. It can be quite relaxing. Channel
5 is the master of a good festive like top 50 Christmas accidents, and
they're the best. And don't forget Jane McDonald's cruising. It's like, we're there.
Yeah. My problem is, and don't hate me because I might ruin them for you now. A friend of mine used to do quite a lot of them as a talking head. He used to be a TV presenter, and he's not now. But he came up on one, and I was like, "Oh my god, someone's on the telly." And then I asked him, I said, "What actually happens on these things?" And went, "Yeah, you go in and you basically just get told." Because I just started to think, why do these people have really like vivid memories of like really obscure things from the 70s?
They're prompted. Are they prompted?
Yeah, and actually, I think that's maybe the point maybe I'm trying to make is with this, I didn't feel like we were getting that. There were no people in this where I was like, they don't know what they're talking about. They had picked good, either people from the horror industry or people that I know are experts in their field. And it was never just like random person told, hey, you're going to say that you liked this film and this is what you're going to say, which is how a lot of this TV shows work.
That's really true, because in this you've got David Dastmalchian, who's in Late Night with the Devil.
There's Chelsea Rebecca from Dead Meat. We spoke about her when we last spoke.
Yeah, I love that channel.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And it just really does pick people where you're like, I actually feel like I'm getting something new and I'm getting something a bit different to just, I think even a lot of those like scariest moments, they'll just pick a random celeb, like a Playboy bunny or something, to be like, I like The Shining. The Shining was based on a Stephen King book. And
they just grab them off the street just so they're talking head. Chelsea speaks so eloquently about horror and her passion for horror. They are the right people, absolutely. And also they're not the people that you would normally expect either, even though, you know, Demi is fantastic, really successful horror channel. It seems really relevant, but you don't really see her on that many things. So it's nice to see people that you wouldn't normally see on a Clips show.
Yeah. And again, like, feels like they've gone for, let's pick people that are smart and know what they're talking about, not just the usual faces that, you know, actually over the years have become a bit dated and you've sort of seen them. It feels a bit on the pulse. Like, it feels like it's made by someone who gets modern horror and all that kind of stuff. So I appreciate that. It doesn't feel like a cheap, let's just throw this on Shudder as a bit of content. Like, it feels like it's been made with a bit of love and a bit of care and attention, which I just wasn't expecting at all. I thought it would be stick on in the background while I'm doing my ironing type thing.
That's what I do as well when I'm watching YouTube TV stuff. So there's 5 episodes. Like we say, we've seen 3 each. One of the ones you haven't seen that I have is the animals episode. This is a really interesting subject because animals in horror films, generally films that are that subject matter, I would stay away from. Cujo, Stephen King's adaptation back in the 80s, I saw at the time, didn't enjoy it. There are films where animals are used in horror films, not necessarily that they're the main central character like Cujo was, but they're used as a device to really upset you. And we spoke about this because horror with animals generally I would stay clear of. I didn't enjoy that episode as much. I still took a lot out of it because I enjoyed it as a serious concept. It was part of the series that I enjoy. So I'm not saying that episode I disliked. It's just my least favourite of the ones I've seen.
Yeah, and I think animal horror is funny. I think I generally don't find animals that scary as a horror thing. And I'm playing a game called The Quarry at the moment, which is a sort of spiritual sequel to Until Dawn.
I got that on PlayStation.
Oh yeah. I'm literally halfway
it's amazing.
And it's great, but both games, halfway through, you realise that it's not a person; it's a werewolf or a Wendigo or something, and it just instantly is like less scary to me because I'm like, it's just a werewolf. Like, I want serial killers. I want like regular people. It just doesn't get me here. The game is fun though. I mean, it's a fun.
Oh, it's brilliant. I've completed it, but probably not completed it as it should.
You could go back, can't you, any time and do a completely different game. And I
think I died actually. That's why I completed it.
Oh, okay, fine. I was just doing at the moment to make sure that the two gay characters could get together at the end. I'm just making them flirt.
I love it. Well, why wouldn't you? I mean, that's that's obvious.
That very often. Maybe that's a good future thing is gay horror. So there is a whole genre out there.
So this episode is Animal Attacks, isn't it? An Animal Attack movie pushes all our human against nature buttons, from demented sharks to unhinged chimps, and this episode kind of delves into those kind of. I mean, it's there's Jaws in there, and there's, like I say, there's Cujo, The Birds, one of my favourite Alfred Hitchcock movies.
I love The Birds. I mean, but then again, The Birds to me almost feels like more of a familial drama in some ways. With just really, I mean, the set pieces in that are so good. Bearing in mind when it was made, and that's one of the film locations I scoped out. I've been to the schoolhouse and done the little run down the hill. So, I forget about The Birds. All right, maybe I do like them more than I thought.
Well, you haven't seen this episode. I mean, like I say, I did enjoy it, but I preferred the others. I mean, there's one episode about scores, which was so fascinating because music is so fundamental, isn't it, in a horror film? So
and again, I thought, it's going to be really obvious. I thought they were going to go really into it, and they did sort of touch on some of the obvious ones. They did Jaws, they did The Shining.
You have to, though, don't you? Because they're so brilliant. I mean, that's that Bernard Herrmann score, Bernard Herrmann score. But they really went in on other things that I hadn't thought about, or just the explaining of the Goblins soundtrack to Suspiria, just the kind of the level of chaos that it adds to that. Like, it just had something to say that felt a bit different than the usual thing about Jaws. And actually, The Shining, they didn't really dwell on it that much. Yeah, I really liked that one. I thought it was, again, I think every episode does a really good job of picking out things you kind of weren't aware of. So they do the hidden gems thing. They do there's a little call out in each episode where they do like a top 10, and they sort of almost go and intentionally pick things that aren't as mainstream as you would expect. And there's a, like I say, Killer Dates episode which you've seen and I've seen, which is dates in horror, the worst scenarios for meeting somebody and why you wouldn't. Serial killers. I mean, American Psycho.
Carrie. I mean, I think, I love that bit where the woman's like, every time she gets to the prom, I just want to stop the film.
I know. Yeah, that's such a good point because you want to see her succeed. Carrie White is, really, really endearing, and she's fallen on hard times, both at home and at school, and you just want her to have a happy life. But she takes advantage of that and kind of flips, obviously, with that film because she has control at the end.
Sissy Spacek, just how can you go from looking like a girl where you're like, I understand why she's bullied, like she looks so downtrodden, to being so pretty and so like glowing and stunning with just, I mean, it's just a good actress. It's why Chloe Grace Moretz never really worked. I never bought her as being this downtrodden bullied girl because she's just too pretty. And it's like, it's not that Sissy Spacek isn't pretty, she just had a look.
And I hated that, when she's stopping the car.
Oh yeah, so now. Spacek just looked direction. Because she was doing all this ooh, and then making it move, and it was just a bit crap, wasn't it? The good remake will bear out. If it doesn't, if it's crap, it will just get forgotten about, and then the original will just be the original as it always was.
Yeah, totally. You made a really interesting point about you know, seeing things that you wouldn't normally see in this series, because I just wanted to make a list of all the films that they mentioned, because there were a lot of films that I know are classic films that I hadn't necessarily seen. And I've made a list of films that I want to either buy or watch, stream online.
Well, that was probably my favourite episode, was the Hidden Gems one, for exactly that reason.
Yeah.
I mean, there were a couple in there, like they brought out Ghostwatch, which I'm always like giddy about, because, you know, that was like a seminal moment of my childhood. But that whole episode, there were a couple I'd heard of, but most of them were like really obscure. Quite a few like British ones as well. Because forget that we were quite good at horror in the kind of the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
In itself, just to watch that was like a little bit of a treasure trove, and getting to hear people talk about stuff I've never heard of, or I was kind of vaguely aware. Like the Stone tapes, I'd always heard that was really scary, but I didn't know anything about it.
So it's like a promo in a way. It's like an advert, which I know it's probably not the sole intention of making this series, but it's great that it's introducing, you know, people to films that they hadn't seen. And like myself, and you know, we're both horror fans and have been for a very long time, and it's still, you know, there are films out there that we still haven't seen, so it's great that it's doing that.
Maybe that's why I liked it. It felt like this feels like a horror series made for horror fans and horror kind of experts, because it is on Shudder. Like, you're generally only going to subscribe to Shudder if you really love horror. They went to that effort rather than just being like, we'll make any old like compilation thing and just throw it up there to give it content. It just felt like it was made with a bit of love by other horror fans as well, which it was. You know, all the people on it were enthusiasts. So.
Yeah, we haven't seen the whole series, so we can't really give it a star rating, but I mean, at the moment it's a 4 for me. Yeah,
it's definitely a 4 out of 5. Like, it's a really fun and interesting watch. I don't know what the last episode is I need to watch, but I need to go and just finish it. But no, very much recommended.
I know they are nearing the end. I mean, by the time this video out, the whole series will probably be there. They're on to episode 5, which is space horror. Which is going to be
and I know exactly why I've left that. That's almost less interesting to me than animal horror. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah, again, it comes back to the same reason as the animal. I like really real world stuff.
Okay.
And like animals going crazy takes me out of the reality I live in, as does space, because I don't live in space. Alien, I think, is maybe slightly different, because that's basically like a haunted house movie in space, the way it's set up. But space is I just find it a bit of a bland setting. Like,
I'm not a massive fan of sci-fi, but I do quite like sci-fi horror. I think the two mix really well, just because it's an unknown area. But yeah, it's what you can't see sometimes.
I'll watch the episode. I'll probably then go, well, actually, there's loads of space stuff that I really like. But
you might change your mind.
It's the sci-fi thing. Really, it just turns me off. It's not my thing. I mean, just because it's a good excuse to just talk about it because it's in this video. But actually, I would like to know what was your experience of Ghostwatch, because that obviously comes back in Gems. Like,
wow,
where were you when you? Because I always love asking people, were you around when it was on?
I was, and I was. I mean, when was it made? 92. Oh, was that a lot later? I thought it was 80s.
Yeah, I was 10, so I remember it very well.
So 92. So I was 12. I must have just finished. I think I just come out of art school. God, I thought I was a lot younger, but obviously I wasn't. I was thinking I was still a teenager, but I wasn't. So I obviously must have known that it wasn't genuine, but it did feel very genuine. And I remember feeling a little bit confused by it, because it was meant to be this kind of mockumentary type thing, and it completely unnerved me. Yeah, pretty terrifying. And also I thought it was really original, because I'd never really seen anything on British TV that was done to the same effect.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, a friend of mine, she's Brazilian actually, and we were chatting last week. She lives in the UK and she's been here for about 10 years. And she said, "Oh, I'm going to watch Ghostwatch." And I said, "Please watch it, but don't judge it by just watching a horror film. Like, put yourself in the shoes of any random Brit who, on a Saturday night, hadn't seen the beginning where it said it was a drama.
Yeah,
and you've got Sarah Green, Michael Parkinson presenting what looks like a very of the era, like BBC live entertainment show, and the fact that it was called Ghostwatch when we already had Crime Watch, which was well established. Like, there's so much in it now. I look back and think, well, of course we all believed it.
I must make a correction, because I said I was 12. I wasn't. I was 22.
I was thinking,
come out of art college at the age of 12. That doesn't make sense.
I was thinking, no offense, but I thought, I didn't know you were only 2 years older than me. I didn't know you were. I was 10, so I vividly remember watching. Dame Edna was on ITV, and it finished about 9:30. Ghostwatch, I believe, started at like 9:20. It was very like oddly timed, which I wonder whether they did that to stop people seeing the bit, because they were forced to add that apparently later. So I switched it over. My brother, we were in bunk beds, and my brother was above me asleep, and I was just 10 years old, sitting in my bedroom, just getting increasingly like anxious about this thing, and then turned it off, I think, towards the end, and then just couldn't sleep. It was terrifying. And I remember going to school on the Monday, it was like everywhere. So
everyone
I
was talking about it.
Yeah, I know that Ghostwatch has had this real resurgence in recent years of popularity, and I'm just desperate for people to understand, like, yeah, it's good, but it's so good based on like how it actually played out.
Your experience was very similar to mine with John Carpenter's Halloween, because I saw that at the age of 10, I think 9 or 10, and I couldn't sleep for weeks afterwards, but I absolutely loved it, and it's become my favourite film of all time. But I went to school, and I think it was because I'd seen it on TV, so it must have been, because I think it was on TV really soon after it was obviously released. It was like, it must have been a couple of years or something, which was quite rare back then, but it was on TV, and I remember everybody at school was talking about it, and that's crazy to think that a lot of 10-year-olds, 9, 10-year-olds were talking about Halloween at school.
I saw it about the same age. I think it was probably about 10. But it was never I mean, there's something about that film as well. It just gets under your skin.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's great. I don't know whether you get that as much these days. Maybe you do. I mean, I don't know what kids are watching and talking about at school, but Ghostwatch was just such an event. Nice little cap off was I used to invite VIP. I sing in a chorus. I used to invite VIPs to our shows, and I got Sarah Green to come to one of our shows once. And me and my friend Anthony cornered her at one point and went, "We love you, but you absolutely ruined our childhood for like."
She must get that all the time as well.
Oh my god! And I'm so sorry. I hear that all the time. And like,
I got it on DVD recently, and it's so brilliant to see it again. And I think it's aged well, actually.
Yeah, I mean, some of the acting is a little shoddy, but I guess, when I'm talking to people about watch it in the right context, it's like you wouldn't have thought that. Like you wouldn't think someone was acting badly because you didn't know they were acting. You just thought, oh, maybe they're a bit awkward. The family is some of their acting is a bit ropey.
Yeah.
But the call-ins, it's all so well done. It's just, and the fact that it was the going live and kicking number, the 811 number.
Brilliant. And do you know what it reminded me of a little bit when I saw Late Night with the Devil? There are elements of that reminded me of Ghostwatch.
I mentioned it in my review. I actually think
you did? Yeah.
Well, I think they did it better in Ghostwatch because they didn't ever break the fourth wall in Ghostwatch. In Late Night with the Devil, there was too many offshoots of, I thought we were just watching this raw footage, and now we've gone behind the scenes. And then the ending is like, well, let's just forget the whole thing. We're just going to go into his brain and have a dream sequence. But this is supposed to be in a documentary. It spoiled the film for me in some ways because I just thought, oh, it's not what it's supposed to be. Ghostwatch, I mean, it just ends on Michael Parkinson being like possessed, and then the camera cuts out, and then there's credits, and you're like, oh my god! Like from start to finish, it commits.
In a way, it makes you think of the outcome. Like in your head, you've visualized it, so you don't need anything else. And I think that's what John Carpenter did with Halloween. It's like less is more sometimes. You need that imagination.
And Late Night Devil really spelled out the ending, whereas this was like, you'd had all these phone-ins of people saying like, I've just at home and my coffee table's exploded, or my son's just got to hospital, and then it ends, and you're like, if you hadn't bought, I mean, by the end you probably are aware, unless you're younger like me, that it was probably fake because Parkinson literally gets possessed. But to end on that note is like, oh, all right then. And then, were people checking the news? Like, has that just happened? I would love to go back. I mean, it's just such a unique, you could never recreate that.
So Horrors Gracie's on Shudder. Check it out. It's season 2. I really want to see season 1, actually. We might have to review that because I'd like to go back and see what they did with season 1.
I mean, it could be awful. They might have had bad reviews and gone, right, we need to do better in season 2. But if it's more of the same, then I'll definitely go and scoop it up. It's just really fun. Like you say, you can sit and take notes and find films you haven't seen before.
Yeah, good to see you, Dan. And we hopefully will have some more stuff to review soon. So
there's tons of stuff coming out. So,
See you soon.
Will do.